Hello, welcome to Train Signal. This is the Monitoring vSphere lesson in the System Center 2012 Operations Manager Training course. Why would you want to monitor vSphere with Operations Manager, you may ask? After all, Operations Manager is a very Microsoft-centric tool. Well, it's actually not that Microsoft-centric. Well, it is, but it can do so much more. As I mentioned elsewhere in this course, there's lots of third-party management packs available that can extend Operations Manager's capabilities to other products that you may find on the market. vSphere enjoys a really prominent place in many data centers. It is the preeminent hypervisor on which most workloads today are run. In fact, more workloads are run on virtual environments now than on physical ones. So vSphere, as you can imagine, is critical infrastructure for a lot of companies. As critical infrastructure, it deserves first-rate monitoring. So you can get that with Operations Manager. The tool that you use to do this is called the Veeam NWorks Management Pack. Now, the name of the product has changed over the years. You still see Veeam, you still see NWorks, and you may see Veeam Management Pack for SCOM as the name of the product. But wherever you see Veeam or you see NWorks, there's a management pack available for Operations Manager. This is not a free management pack. This is a third-party tool that you have to purchase in order to be able to use it in your vSphere environment. This plugs into your existing System Center Operations Manager framework. And there are no weird agents required on an ESX host or individual virtual machines. Basically, what happens is you deploy servers with the normal SCOM agents, and those will leverage VMware's powerful monitoring APIs to gather information and return it back to the Operations Manager server the same way you view all of the other information in the Operations Manager console. One of the things that I should make clear is we're going to go through an installation of the Veeam Management Pack, but this is going to be a very demonstration-oriented installation. If you're doing a real-world installation, I highly urge you to read the Veeam documentation and make sure that you're deploying this the right way for your size environment and for if you're using vCenter versus single hosts and things like that. There are a number of components that make up the Veeam Management Pack. First of all, there are some components that we'll be installing to the Operations Manager server. One is the collector. This is a component that can run on a standalone machine, on the SCOM server, or on a vCenter server itself. Then we have a management pack, and you've used these already in this course, and this is obviously going to be an Operations Manager component. And this is the Veeam Management Pack that really enables the entire solution inside the Operations Manager environment. This is what hooks Operations Manager to the Veeam solution. And then there's components that you can install on a separate server. You have the Enterprise Manager, which handles data collection from individual vSphere hosts and or vCenter. And then you have the Enterprise Web Manager tool, which is an web-based tool that allows you to manage the Enterprise Manager. And those we're going to install to a separate server in our demonstration. And again, the reason that I say this is going to be a demonstration is because every environment is going to be different. Your environment, you may not want to install these together. You may want to set up separate servers, and there may be different requirements around doing that. From a prerequisite standpoint, there's a number of supported environments by the Veeam Management Pack. First of all, vCenter versions 2.5 or later are supported. That is basically 2.5 or later for Virtual Center, or 4.x or 5.0 for vCenter. For vSphere versions, ESX 3.5 and 4 are supported, and ESXi 3.5, 4.x, and 5.0 are also supported. Now, as of this recording, vSphere 5.1 is also supported. However, the new features that are available in vSphere 5.1 are not yet available in the management pack. So it'll operate just like it does on a 5.0 environment, but you may not see some of the new things that are available in vSphere 5.1. And on the Operations Manager front, the management pack supports Operations Manager 2007 with Service Pack 1, Operations Manager 2007 R2, and Operations Manager 2012. You must also have the Microsoft.Windows.Server.Library.Management Pack installed in your Operations Manager environment before you continue. If you don't, and you're running Operations Manager 2012, this can be installed from your source installation media for Operations Manager 2012 by adding a management pack, just like you've already done in this course. Now, just so you're aware of what some of the requirements are around the components for the management pack, the NWorks collector server, it is a best practice to install it on a management server, but should you choose to do otherwise, you can see on your screen the list of supported operating systems and requirements for each of those operating systems. For example, if you're going to install it to Windows Server 2008 with Service Pack 2, you also have to install the Knowledge Base Article 981574 hotfix. Veeam also recommends you have at least 3 gigs of RAM and at least 300 megabytes of disk space on whatever server you're planning to deploy the collector server to. Now, the Enterprise Manager and the Web UI, there's no necessarily any hardware requirements, and the operating system requirements are the same as for the collector server, but you also have to have IIS 6 or 7 installed, and should you choose to install IIS 7, you need to also include the IIS 6 management tools, which are available as a part of the IIS installation under Windows Server 2008. We also need some accounts. We have the SCOM Agent Action account, which must have administrator access to the server where the NWorks component is going to run. VMware Connection account. This is going to require at least read-only rights to vCenter or to a vSphere host. Well, we're going to use the root account for this purpose. In the real world, you would create an account that has less privileges, but for our purposes, we're going to use the root account so you can see exactly what is returned from vSphere into Operations Manager. Then we have the Enterprise Manager Collector Service account. This is a Windows service. This has to be a domain account with local admin rights. We're going to use domain admin for this course, but again, you would generally use an account with lesser privileges so you don't have security holes by using an account with such great rights as a domain admin account. And here's how we're going to accomplish our goals. First of all, understand I've already satisfied the prereqs for this demo. I've installed IIS onto a machine named NWorks 1 that's going to act as the Enterprise Management Console for this purpose. Now, I have not installed any of the Veeam tools yet. All I've done is install the .NET Framework, the IIS tools, and things like that to make sure that we're ready to go. I've also deployed an Operations Manager agent to the new server named NWorks 1. And you'll see that in the console in a little bit. So our job is going to be to start by installing the Enterprise Management Server and user interface. Then we'll install the collector to the Operations Manager server. And then we're going to configure the SCOM agent on that machine for proxying. That's not something you've seen before, but I'll show you how to do that. And this basically allows the system to discover other objects. Then we'll import the NWorks Management Pack into Operations Manager. And then we'll add vSphere hosts to be monitored. So our first step is to go over to our new server and install the Enterprise Management Server and user interface. As you can see, we're now on the server named NWorks 1. We want to install the Enterprise Manager, and there it is. I downloaded these files from the Veeam site. So this is something I've downloaded from Veeam, and I've expanded the zip file that I downloaded. This is the whole Management Pack installation package that you're seeing right here. So to get started, I'll simply double-click this file and choose Run. You can safely skip the welcome page, just hit Next, and accept the license agreement and click Next again. One of the things we always have to have is a license file, and I do have one of those. And to locate that, click Browse. I happen to have it in my Downloads folder. And there it is, and click Open, and then click Next. We'll choose the default installation location. Now this is going to be the port on which the tool operates. We'll just leave the default, that's safe. And this time we want to provide service credentials for what username we want to have running the services. And again, I mentioned I was going to use a domain admin account, and that will remain the case. Click Next, then click Install. A pretty quick installation, if I do say so myself. And click Finish. Before we do the log on, log off, let's make sure this actually installed. So let's go to the Start menu, Administrative Tools, and Event Viewer. And we should see some new logs right there. NWorks event log. That basically tells us that the tool installed just as it was supposed to. Now, the reason we have to log off and log back on is because a new local group was created for administrators for this tool. If we do not log off and log back on, we're going to see error messages down the line, and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to perform a log off right now. The next step is to install the web user interface so we have a way to manage this tool. So I'll go back to my installation files, which I put in a folder called NWorks, and we're going to install the NWorks user interface this time. And choose Run. And again, we can safely skip the opening page. We got to accept the license agreement. We'll choose the default destination folder, and our server name is nworks1.globalmantics.com. Make sure I typed that correctly. I did. Port 8084, and click Next. Now, the port you just saw actually was how the back end communicates. The front end will communicate using port 4430. And click Install. And finish. Let's take a look at what we've got. So we'll open up the NWorks Enterprise Manager. It's a web-based tool. Notice it's connected port 4430. We'll log in using our current Windows credentials. I'm logged in as administrator. Now, right now, you're seeing a whole lot of nothing. You're basically seeing that there's not a lot here yet. There's no collectors. We haven't installed any collectors yet. There's no vCenter. There's no ESX hosts because we haven't added any yet. You will see, though, we have our license information. This is a not-for-resale license with 12 sockets that expires on May 19th, 2013. And no VMware servers connected. Really not a whole lot of exciting stuff here right now. We're not seeing any monitoring load because there's nothing being monitored. So the dashboard gives you some information, but until we start adding things, it's not really all that exciting. So this one's checked off the list. We've installed the Enterprise Management Server and the user interface, and we've tested it to make sure that it works. Now, as you can see, I'm back over on the Operations Manager server. I've browsed to the installation folder where we have the NWorks downloaded files, and this time I want the VIC, basically the collector, the Virtual Infrastructure Collector server. So I double-clicked that to start the installation. And in theory, that will actually kick off, the installation of the product. And choose Run. And we'll see some familiar stuff here, such as an opening screen and a license agreement that we'll just skip past. Again, we'll just choose the default destination folder, choose Next. Now, what's the name of our enterprise server? Well, that's nworks1.globalmantics.com. And it's port 8084, we kept the default. We want some service credentials. Again, we're going to use the domain admin account. Click Next. And then click Install. And finish. Now, I'm going to go back over to the NWorks 1 server and take a look at the dashboard again. And here we are on the dashboard. And as you can see, we now have a collector. So it was immediately reflected in the Enterprise Manager that we added this collector to the environment. If you wanted to, you could see configuration information for the collector. Right now it's just in a standby mode because we don't have anything else going on. But it's nice you can actually get some information about what's happening in the environment immediately. Now we're going to go back over to the Operations Manager console, and we're going to do two things. One, we're going to make sure that the Operations Manager server itself is configured to do what's called proxying. And then we're going to import the NWorks management pack into Operations Manager. And this time, I'm back in the Operations Manager console. And as you can see, I've gone to Administration, Device Management, Management Servers. I'm going to right-click my management server because this is the server to which we've installed the NWorks collector, and choose Properties. On the Security tab, I need to make sure that I have the checkbox in the Allow this server to act as a proxy and discover managed objects on other computers. This is basically how you're able to collect information from vSphere and bring it into the Operations Manager environment without an agent. This makes life a whole lot easier for everybody because you don't have to worry about trying to put agents out on too many pieces of infrastructure in your environment. And we'll click OK because now we've verified that. Now if that was not selected, you would select it and then move on with the process. Our next step is to install a management pack. So we'll go to Management Pack and we're going to choose Import Management Packs. We'll go to Add and we'll choose Add from Disk. And then as we've seen before, we're asked if there's a dependency that's not satisfied by your management pack, would you like to download that dependency from the catalog? I generally choose yes. And this time we want to browse to the location where we have this management pack. And there it is. So I'll select it. And it says it's ready to import. So I'll click Install. And the management pack will then be imported into the Operations Manager environment. And it's a process that doesn't take too long. And as you can see, the import process is complete. And there's the management pack that we're looking for. And you can see all the properties if you like. This is version 5.7 of the product. 6.0 is coming out. And all the dependencies were already included in the Operations Manager environment. Our next step is to add vSphere hosts to be monitored. We're going to go back to the NWorks server to accomplish this goal. And here we are back over in the NWorks console. And I'll go to Connected VMware Servers. And I'll choose Add VMware Server. The IP address is 192.168.0.171. This is a host, not a vCenter server. And I'll provide credentials for logging into that server. And click Next. Now I haven't done a whole lot with this ESX server. It's really just a sample lab server. So it's called localhost. And default monitoring group is 1. We're not worried too much about monitoring groups here right now. But this is going to tell you about how many licenses it used too. This server only has a single CPU, so a single socket. So there's 11 sockets remaining, and that's all it's telling you down there at the bottom of the screen. And finish. So now we've connected one of our servers. And you can see we've got everything kind of going over here. There's our System Center Operations Manager server. There's our vSphere server. Monitoring load is 1%. Object count is 33, so it's actually finding some things. And that's a good thing, because in a little bit we'll go back over to the Operations Manager console and we'll see what it's actually found in the environment. And now let's go over to the Operations Manager console and take a look at how our NWorks gathering process is going. Make sure that all the NWorks components, all the Veeam components, are actually operating. As you can see, we're back in the Operations Manager console, and this time I've expanded something new, NWorks VMware in the monitoring area, and I've selected the Enterprise Manager dashboard. As you can see, our Enterprise Management server and our Collector server are both in a green state, which means they're gathering information and bringing it over into the Operations Manager environment. And we can see further proof of that if we look at Enterprise Manager server state here under Enterprise Manager. we see that it actually is in a green state. We have a performance dashboard, just as what we may or may not see anything here, but right now it's we're not seeing anything. Then we have this topology map, which shows us that NWorks is connected to basically the operations manager server, as well as to this VI API connection, which is connected to 192.168.0.171. So it's actually connected to our vSphere environment because that's the IP address of my vSphere host that we're monitoring. And then we've got basically the operations manager environment over here. So NWorks Enterprise it knows about the topology. It knows what it's looking for. It understands that the operations manager server exists. It also understands that the vSphere server actually exists. Then we also have information about the collection process. The collection state is good for the collector servers. Then we have the collector states. The VI API link is healthy. No active alerts with regard to the collector server. And again, we have diagrams that we can look at to see if the system actually understands how it's configured. And we're not seeing everything we want to see yet. It takes a little bit of time for the vSphere metrics to start making their way back into Operations Manager, but those will come eventually. Then we have the NWorks servers themselves. One of them is installed on SCOM, but you can also see that this group diagram gets pretty large over time. Let me close that, then close this, and you can start seeing a little bit more. So this is the when we explode the Operations Manager server, we see that there's a lot of different metrics we can be watching here. And again, it'll take a little bit of time, but ultimately we'll see vSphere, virtual machines, clusters, hosts, resource pools make their way into the Operations Manager environment for full monitoring, just as if they were running Windows and Microsoft Exchange, for example. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.